The reason I do these primitive reviews is because I love the caveman setting. There's something liberating and exciting about a prehistoric environment. A fantasy land without rules or regulations, as Patti Smith would say. I love to spend my time there, especially in winter, because these are all tropical settings. And Chuck Rock for the Genesis and Super Nintendo has a great prehistoric atmosphere. Bright, colorful 16-bit graphics, silly characters, a tolerable but repetitive soundtrack, and an excellent background drawings of a prehistoric setting. The title character, Chuck, is a bald, 5 o'clock shadow-having, compared to most hirsute cavemen though, he's clean-shaven, and more importantly, great big gut-having cave guy. It's so powerful, this gut, that like the Blob in Marvel Comics, he can whack people in the head with it and knock them to their deaths. Chuck is a sort of prehistoric Al Bundy in a way. I think he has that feel to him, a sort of blokish, steak-chewing, rock-and-roll-loving everyman, and he's a really likable character. Unfortunately, when you put the setting and the trappings and the accoutrement of the game aside, that's where the happy times end, because Chuck Rock is one of the great gaming disappointments of my life. I can still remember getting this game at Christmas in the early 90s, and I loved caveman stuff back then as much as I do now. I fired up the Genesis and had oodles of fun for about 10 minutes. Then the game's serious flaws emerged, and it was rather quick. It's strange to remember how many games in the 8 and 16-bit era got such a basic function as attacking wrong. I mean, my god, how can you get that wrong? The jumping is okay, the moving is okay, you move a little slow, but Chuck's a big guy with a big gut, so you imagine that. But the attacking is ridiculous. Chuck Rock belongs to an entire subcategory of games where your basic attack is freaking broken. It's a cool idea that Chuck can smack people upside the head with his mighty gut of doom, but it means getting way too close to enemies. You have to be all up in their grill to hit them, exposing yourself to damage too easily. The game also has puzzle elements to it. Oh, wonderful. This isn't unusual in these kind of platform games of the time, and it's not hard to figure out or anything, but you have to move these big stones around while being attacked, sometimes by aerial enemies, my favorite, and they're not easy to avoid. I love difficult games. Dark Souls is my favorite game of this generation, but that's a fair difficulty. You get better at it with time and become experienced. Chuck Rock is dull, slow compared to Sonic and Mario, and gets into a clusterfuck of damage way too easily. He has to get too close to the enemies. Ultimately, the levels are well designed, the characters are cool, but the gameplay is terrible. Your gut and foot don't stick out far enough away from enemies to hurt them without getting yourself hurt. It's not hard to do this either. Shatterhand and Kickmaster on the NES featured characters that fought with hands and feet, and they did it perfectly. This game has a surprising following these days. People actually like it for some strange reason. Gluttons for punishment, I suppose, or maybe they let their fondness for the character override objection to the shitty gameplay. The game was released for the Genesis and SNES with no appreciable difference aside from superior sound quality on the Super NES. I can't recommend this game, but it's fairly cheap. You can get it for a couple of bucks or less used. So if you really like the character and really like the settings, I guess you might enjoy this, but I would test it out first, because great settings, great style, and great look do not a great game make. The gameplay has to be there, and it just isn't. But weirdly enough, against every odd, the second Chuck Rock game is actually really good. They learned from their mistakes and made the game much better. In the second game, you play as the son of Chuck Rock, this club-toting caveman, and I have to stress that club-toting, he has an actual weapon and an actual attack that makes sense, so you get some distance between you and your enemies. And this game is actually pretty darn good. I mean, maybe I'm just basing it on how much I dislike the first Chuck Rock game, but I think the level design is better. This cute little character is wonderful. I love it when he cries like that when he dies, like a baby throwing a tantrum. And I love the fact that he has a gigantic club that's bigger and heavier than he is, like Bam Bam. Somehow, against every odd, they did the game much better this time. So if you're going to get a Chuck Rock game, I'd highly suggest getting the second one. I think the music is actually even better in this one. Strangely enough, though, this one only came out for the Genesis. The Super NES did not get the second Chuck Rock game, as far as I know. But this game is also pretty cheap, and if you're going to get one of these games, get this one. It's a lot of fun. It plays so much better. The look and the style is generally the same, but the levels are better designed, the puzzles feel a little bit better, and the attacking is not broken like it was in the other game. So Chuck Rock is not a total wash. Get the second one. It's fantastic.